vocally opposed to Trump's defense spending and a strong supporter of Palestine. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has been making waves on the global stage. But 7 years into the job, he's facing scandal after scandal at home. Can he survive a second term in office? And what difference can he make in Europe? Hello and welcome to Roundtable. I'm Enda Brady. Now, Spain's Premier, Pedro Sanchez, has been making headlines for speaking about the benefits of migration and the EU's double standards on Gaza and Ukraine. He is a charismatic leader who has stood up against Trump, but he has spent much of the past year mired in corruption-related scandals and political defeats at home. So who is Pedro Sanchez?
An unapologetic socialist who has clung on to power since 2018 despite electoral setbacks. Now Pedro Sanchez has a like-minded friend in Europe with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Two of the last remaining centre-left leaders on the continent, they recently shook hands on a post-Brexit bilateral agreement. The leaders also discussed Ukraine and Gaza, with Sanchez accusing the EU of hypocrisy over its responses to the conflicts.
I think that we are very much aligned on global debates such as climate change, Ukraine, or the terrible tragedy, the situation that we are facing in Gaza.
Sanchez has already recognised the Palestinian state and is Europe's most outspoken leader against Israel's war on Gaza.
This is not self-defense. It is not even attacking. It is exterminating a defenseless people. It is a violation of all the laws of humanitarian law. And despite this, the international community is unable to stop this tragedy.
Sanchez has also stood up to President Trump's demands for increased NATO military spending. In a letter to NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte, he said, "It is the legitimate right of each government to decide whether or not it is willing to make those sacrifices. As a sovereign ally, we choose not to." His refusal led to threats from Trump.
I think Spain's terrible what they've done. No, I do. They're the only country that won't pay the full up. They want to stay at 2%. I think it's terrible. And, you know, they're doing very well. The economy is very well. And that economy could be blown right out of the water.
It's true that Spain's economy has grown faster than any other major country in Europe, expanding 3.2% last year, figures many of his counterparts would envy. Sanchez's Socialist Party has also brought in wealth taxes and argued openly for more immigration at a time when other leaders are trying to control it. After a hung parliament in the 2023 general election, he managed to form a ruling coalition by uniting with smaller left-wing parties, warning that without their support, the right-wing Vox party could enter government. But corruption scandals surround his inner circle, and although he's not been directly implicated himself, it has damaged his standing. But with the next Spanish election not for 2 more years, could this savvy political operator continue to defeat the odds and hold on to power?
Well, let's bring in our guests. Joining us from Malaga in Spain, we have the journalist Zoe Bass. In Madrid, we have Alejandro Quiroga. Alejandro is Professor of Spanish History at Newcastle University. And I'm delighted to say here in the studio with me, we have the journalist Hayley Jones. You're all very welcome to this roundtable. I'll come to you first, Zoe. I saw Pedro Sanchez up close at Davos this year. He is a very charismatic guy, super smart, sharply dressed, and the room gravitates around him. Give us your impression of the man and the politician.
Yes, he cuts a striking figure. And also, if you compare him to the Spanish prime ministers that have come before, he's definitely a different kind of figure. As you say, he's tall, he's dark, he's handsome, and the Spanish press have recognized this. He also, as you've also mentioned, he is a bit of a gambler, and he likes to make bold moves. So I think the combination of the physical appearance and the strong political moves have definitely drawn attention from the world stage, and also back at home, but a little bit more mixed response back at home.
Alejandro, in terms of being bold, he has been a vocal critic of Israel and its war on the Palestinian people in Gaza. That has been an outlier in Europe in many ways. We've not heard European leaders speak out as strongly as the Spanish Prime Minister has.
It is true. It's been perhaps the leader in the European Union who's been more vocal in favor of the Palestine people. Spain has been one of the first states to recognize Palestine as a sovereign state, and now is propose a number of measures, among them just finishing or breaking up the special agreement that Israel has with the European Union.
Thank you, Alejandro. Hayley, to you, I follow a lot of sports and cycling in particular. Vuelta a España has been on TV over the last few weeks. They've had problems in Spain with the amount of Palestinian protesters flying flags, lining the route. There was an Israeli team in that race. How much support is there for the Palestinian cause across Spain in general?
I think there is a lot of support for Palestine, but obviously you've got small pockets of the population, just like in the UK, where, you know, the police have got to deal with different groups.
And tell me, politically, this is perhaps a bit of a risk when you've got an American president who backs Israel to the hilt, and the Spanish Prime Minister is proudly coming out, speaking against Israel and backing the Palestinian people. He's not afraid to take chances or to stand by his beliefs very firmly.
Yeah, I think that's what really separates him from the British Prime Minister, in that he will just come out and say exactly what he wants to say, and he doesn't go back on it. I think the British Prime Minister is more cautious. He stands by his beliefs, and whether he's right or wrong, he stands by them. Yeah.
Thanks, Hayley. Zoe, to you, just on the issue of Gaza, how significant do you think it is then to have the Spanish Prime Minister speaking so eloquently and passionately about what Israel is doing there?
Well, I think he's definitely putting pressure on the rest of the European Union to take a stronger stance. So far, he's struggled to rally support for his cause, so he is still a bit of an outlier. But I think there are many. I think he's gaining a lot of public support because of his outspoken stance. And I would say that across Spain, the general feeling is very supportive of his stance on Gaza. And I think even in other European countries. So I think he knows that, and I think he's playing to that particular angle.
Alejandro, talk to me about the issue of migration in Spain. Pedro Sanchez says it is an opportunity for Spain, and he has delivered economic growth, and he is very much in favour of migration. But I saw one video during the summer of a speedboat arriving at great pace from Morocco. I'm sure you saw the video I'm on about as well. Southern Spain, a lot of men jumped off and swam to the shore, and people on the beach detained them until the police arrived. So is he really in step with Spanish public opinion on both legal and illegal migration?
Well, yeah, I think that the incident at the beach that he mentioned, I think it was more of a one-off, actually, because most of the cases that we know, people are actually helping. So tourists are helping migrants when they reach in these small boats when they reach the coast of the Canary Islands or the Balearic Islands or southern Spain. So I think it was more of a one-off. It was a very impressive, and but I'm not sure that's sort of the how Spanish people feel in the majority. Having said that, it is true that Pedro Sanchez has been really vocal about the benefits of migration, and it's true that if you check opinion polls, Spanish people are fairly aware of the benefits of legal migration and how much the country has economically grown over the last 10, 15 years. Having said that, it is also true that the far right and recently the Conservative Party are both campaigning or stoking fear about migration and illegal migration in particular. So if you take opinion polls, that perception of migration as a benefit for the country is slowly but steadily changing.
Thanks, Alejandro. Zoe, just back to you on migration. How important do you think migration into Spain has been in terms of economic growth? Spain is doing really, really well on the financial front.
Yes, it is. I think it's difficult to say that it's largely due to migration, but certainly there have been articles. I think The Economist published an article not so long ago on the important role that migration has played in the economic success of Spain. I mean, Spain is one of the fastest growing countries in the EU. But I think we also have to look at other aspects of economic growth. I mean, the service industry in Spain has benefited largely from the sort of the post-COVID working from home, digital nomad trends. And I think they've also benefited a lot from the recovery funds that were provided by the EU. They haven't been as badly affected in terms of manufacturing like a country like Germany, the fallout of the Ukraine war. So I think there are probably a lot of different factors that have played into Spain's economic success. But I would definitely say that migration is one of those factors.
Thank you, Zoe. Hayley, to you, talk to me about relations with the UK. So Pedro Sanchez recently met Keir Starmer. They've signed an agreement together, both countries deepening the ties. And just on Gibraltar, this agreement will see the removal of border checks between Gibraltar and mainland Spain?
Yes.
How important is that?
It's really important. I mean, it's a win-win situation for the British and Spain, because it just means cutting lots of queues and waiting at in the Gibraltar area. For people living in Spain, going to work in Gibraltar, it makes life a lot easier. From people coming to Gibraltar into Spain, it makes it a lot easier.
Zoe, to you, talk to me about the relationship then between Spain and the UK. Sanchez getting on very well with Keir Starmer. These are two men of the left, two socialist leaders in Europe. And apart from the guy in Norway, Jonas Gahr Støre, that's pretty much it, isn't it? I mean, they're few and far between.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it is significant that Sanchez is the first Spanish president to visit the UK in many, many years. I think relations between the two countries have not been this good since Brexit. Having said that, we know that there are so many British people living here in Spain, especially where I am, down on the Costa del Sol, Malaga region, and moving down to Gibraltar. We have, large numbers of Brits. So there is a very strong sort of tie between these two countries, but because of Brexit and then the very sore point of Gibraltar, and that has been quite a sore point for a number of years. So I think this agreement is significant, although you'll find that the Spanish right are critical of this agreement and are calling it a sellout on the part of Sanchez.
Hayley, it's not all plain sailing and positive headlines for Pedro Sanchez, because there have been corruption allegations against members of his family, even his wife. How difficult have these been for him to field? He denies any wrongdoing whatsoever, but how does that narrative play out in the Spanish media?
Yeah, I mean, this happened in around June, July time of this year, 2025. And there were quite a lot of people in Spain calling for early elections as a result of that. His popularity has dipped slightly. You know, in Spain, Vox is rising, and
this is the right-wing populist party.
If you put the two parties in the right bloc together, then they've got quite a lot of support compared to Sanchez. So it did affect his popularity, because people do obviously believe what they read in the press and on TV. So, but I think he's quite good at riding it out. He's quite good at just riding out. Yeah.
Thanks, Hayley. So he just come in on those corruption allegations. He seems to be bulletproof Teflon-like almost. How difficult has it been the last few months for Sanchez?
I agree. I mean, he is hugely resilient. He has come back on more than one occasion. In fact, his whole political career, I think you could characterize as a series of comebacks on the part of Sanchez. But I do think that the stress is beginning to tell. You know, the corruption charge or the corruption cases that are swirling around him really are growing. I mean, it's his wife, his brother, the third sort of most important person in his party, Santos Sedan. And then we also had the ex-transport minister. And so the numbers just keep mounting. And indeed, we've noticed recently that Pedro Sanchez has lost a lot of weight. He's looking really, really thin to the point of looking gaunt. And there have been articles in the Spanish press about the change in his physical appearance, and people are speculating that this might be the stress is finally beginning to tell.
Thank you, Zoe. Alejandro, just come in on those allegations. Do you think he has done a good job of proving to the Spanish people that there's nothing to see here? Or is this a story that's going to dog his premiership?
Well, I think we have to differentiate in between two different cases. The one that we just mentioned about Santos Cerdán and Ábalos. So these were the number twos of the party, and they were accused of embezzlement. And it seems that, it seems quite clear that there's something really dirty, and the accusations may be true. A different thing, I think, is the accusations of his Pedro Sanchez's wife and brother, because those seem, at least for the time being, they're weak cases, and there may well be cases of what is known as lawfare, by which some conservative judges have been leading investigations. Those investigations may end up in nothing, but the point of this is not that much that they are actually convicted, but that they are so for so long in the media that they cause a political damage. So I think the political damage is been done, and is going to continue to be done. To what extent that is going to have an effect in the next elections, well, no one really knows. But it's certainly a problem for Pedro Sanchez at the moment.
Thank you, Alejandro. And I should say again that Pedro Sanchez denies any wrongdoing whatsoever. Hayley, let's talk about President Trump. He doesn't seem to be a fan of Pedro Sanchez. I noticed in August that big sit down at the White House with all the European leaders planning what to do about Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
The President of Finland was there, but the Prime Minister of Spain did not get an invite. Should that be worrying for Spain that Trump doesn't really take them seriously or like this man?
I think he, I think it's sort of a mutual dislike between the two of them. So, from Trump's point of view, it's almost like he feels though he must punish Sanchez for not obeying him, so to speak. And Sanchez, he just doesn't want to be under Trump's thumb. So
he's happy with that?
I think, yeah.
Let's bring in Zoe. Just on the spending issue there, which seems to be the root of Trump's dislike of Spain at the moment. Spain spends, barely 2% of GDP on defence. Trump wants 5%. That's pretty much the long and the short of it, Zoe, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, Sanchez was very outspoken, and, well, I guess you could say he was one of the few European leaders who stood up to Trump directly, because he put his foot down about the spending, the NATO spending, and Spain will not be reaching or aiming for that 5%. Clearly, that's a break with the mold. I think between that and then his very outspoken support of Palestine, I think those two things are working against him when it comes to being in Trump's good books.
Alejandro, to you, Spanish public, do people care about what America thinks, or do they care what Donald Trump thinks of Pedro Sanchez?
Well, to some extent. What I would like to say is that, for instance, we know that 82% of the Spanish population considers that what Israel is committing in Palestine is a genocide, whereas in terms of the importance that people would give to Donald Trump and his comments or his political actions with relation to Spain, those are, I think they have been taken lately with a pinch of salt, because well, it's very difficult to tell what Trump is going to do, and well, because U.S. diplomacy is not the most reliable source nowadays. So in a sense, I think that the political issue now is, in international terms, is more Palestine, and generally speaking, the Spanish public does not care very much about Donald Trump in the sense of, whether there's going to be some sort of retaliation or whether this is going to affect their daily lives. I don't think so, no.
Zoe, to you, do you think Sanchez has made a political calculation in terms of defence spend? He knows full well that defence does not win votes. People in Spain care about cost of living, housing for young people, and that economy keeping going and improving. Do you think Sanchez thought about it and thought, why should we be spending more on defence just because some man in America is telling us to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, his presidency has been characterized by, increases in the minimum wage, increases in monthly pension payments. He's a very strong defender, supporter of the welfare state. He's got a very progressive agenda. So this obviously doesn't fit in at all with large defense spending budget and then having to maybe cut back on the welfare side. So it fits in also very much with his political position. And I think it's definitely probably won him some respect amongst the Spanish public and even abroad, that he was, well, bold enough really to stand up to Trump when many others simply did not. And also we must remember that Sanchez made the point that Spain's geographical position means that it is, well, he explained it in terms of Spain has other security concerns from Africa, from the Sahel region. Those are the places that they need to be looking to in terms of defence because of their geographical position.
Thanks, Zoe. Hayley, final point to you. You split your time between the United Kingdom and Spain. Give us a flavour of what life in Spain is like under Pedro Sanchez. For the average family, would you say it's a pretty decent quality of life?
Yeah, I mean, obviously for a lot of people, their working rights are better, more security. For older people, pensioners, their pension's gone up. Then public transport, he's made pricing more fair. So for all those things, life is better. But obviously there are lots, it's polarised his popularity. So there are pockets of the population who are not happy, but then you get that in lots of countries.
And tell me, in terms of polling, where do you think the threat comes from in a few years' time when Spain has another election?
I'd say it comes from Vox. They are rising in popularity. It's a similar picture with the UK, actually, with Reform, but Vox in Spain, which is sort of equivalent, and the right wing.
Thank you. Yeah. Zoe, what's the appeal of Vox then, if they are going to be a thorn in his side in the next election?
Well, I think the problem with Spain is the huge polarization that we see in the political landscape. To be fair, I think this has always been a feature of Spanish politics. There are very deep divides between left and right. This might be a hangover even from this, the Civil War and from the Franco era, but people are quite tribal in a sense in terms of their political affiliation, and then a party like Vox has simply doubled down on that and made it even more so, just added to that polarization. And if we also take into account the fact that Pedro Sanchez made a deal with the Catalans, that also by some it was seen as a good move, whereas others saw it as, well, some actually called it treason. So that has also given fuel to the Vox fire, if you want to put it like that.
Thanks, Zoe. Final point to you, Alejandro. If there were an election in Spain next week, I'm guessing Sanchez would be the winner.
Well, we have the opinion polls published yesterday, so the answer would be yes. He would be the winner. But having said that, he would probably be in a very similar situation to the one in which he is at this very moment. And also probably he would need to create a coalition, a parliament that would actually include not only parties from the left, not only left-wing regionalist parties, but also, I mean, Catalan and Basque nationalists of the left, but also of the right. But then, you know, we don't really know when we're going to have the next elections. If it's in the short term, things you know may change very, very rapidly as politics change very, very rapidly these days.
Thank you, Alejandro, Zoe and Hayley Jones here in the studio with me. Remember, you can see more discussion and debate on our YouTube channel. Just search for Roundtable TRT World. But for now, from me, Enda Brady, and all the team here, goodbye and thank you for watching.